Well, it's a couple minutes past 11:30. I think we can go ahead and get started. I want to, welcome everybody to our CIO Huddle, hosted by Jim Shaw, a CIO at PAAS Advisors, and I'm Eric Harper, Director of Business Development here at PAAS Advisors. Again, we appreciate everyone taking the time out of your day to join us for this collaborative event. Before I hand it over to Jim, if you have questions, please feel free to submit them throughout the event in the chat box in the right-hand corner of your screen, or you can email them to me at eric.harper@paasadvisors.com. I'll now turn it over to Jim. Jim?
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate everybody's time today. As mentioned, my name is Jim Shaw. I'm the CIO of PAAS Advisors. Let me start by saying something simple. I am not a salesperson. I don't want to be a salesperson, and I leave the marketing stuff up to others. What I am is an IT person that's been involved in some form of IT going back to the 1970s. Since 2000, my role has been as a CIO at various firms. For approximately 15 years at that time, I managed a successful national data center division valued in the hundreds of millions of dollars with many global organizations as clients. Interestingly, I was never given an annual budget. My finances were project-driven, which produced a few challenges in this time. Since the purpose of this huddle is to discuss ways to reduce spend within your IT budget, I'll give you a little background first on my past experience in dealing with such things. As a CIO, I negotiated and renegotiated countless contracts with the well-known IT suppliers. I was always able to get a few bucks knocked off the deal or get some other incentive to sign the deal. I don't know how you guys feel, but to me, it was like buying a car. I was happy to get the deal done, but I always felt like I was being screwed in the process. Salesperson always wanted to be your buddy, take you to lunch, take you to dinner, maybe a ball game, but you always knew it was about the sale. I'm not a networking type of person, but I would occasionally talk with the other CIOs in the region and hear about the great deals they signed. Most of it I just blew off as BS, but it did frustrate me. I would take my frustrations out on the next sales team that came in my office. I'd throw a few chairs around, throw out a few curse words, I'd calm down a bit and get a few more bucks knocked off the deal. I realized that's not necessarily a professional way of handling such things, but it did make good story. Today, suppliers have become strategic business partners, so having that healthy relationship with your suppliers and the sales team is key to success. With that said, though, do you know if you ever did get the best deal? A few years back, I took the opportunity to change jobs and began working for an organization that is now known as PAAS Advisors. PAAS is made up of a team of experienced sales, procurement, and IT professionals. I quickly learned from the experienced sales team, some of whom worked with some of the same large suppliers I had dealt with for years, that I never did get the best deal. And when I was happy getting a standard 10% discount, others were getting 15 to 20%. So you kind of imagine how I felt. Unless you're working with a company such as PAAS, you'll never really know if you get the best deal. PAAS has an AI platform known as PAAS 360. Through this, we're able to aggregate data and quickly compare deals across many customers, geographies, industries, and volumes. I'm located in Pittsburgh. Back in the day, if I was lucky, I could only compare my price with my contacts in the same region. Since PAAS 360 aggregates the data, for example, I can now compare my deal across various geographies. In doing some research, I found a deal in Houston had a discount of 80%. In Denver, the same deal was discounted at 75%. In Pittsburgh, it was down to 70%. So again, it gives you something else to compare when you're trying to work out a deal. At this point, though, PAAS 360 becomes a very powerful tool in the negotiation process. In addition, we also have high-level contacts within the large suppliers, which can assist in guaranteeing an equitable outcome when negotiating and renegotiating contracts. With few exceptions, the world today has never witnessed such a crisis as we're experiencing. Besides taking care of yourself and your family, you are still at the center of keeping your business running, as well as looking for ways to cut costs, reduce spend, and improve cash flow. Today does provide a unique opportunity to significantly reduce that spend. Over the last few weeks, I've talked to many of the suppliers you probably deal with. Without exception, everyone was empathetic to the cause of their customers. Keep in mind, as you may be struggling with this crisis, so are the suppliers. What's important to the CEOs of those companies are, of course, their market share and their long-term client relationships. Before talking with your suppliers, I would also recommend that you discuss the financial side of your contracts and potential savings with your CFO. The CFO understands the impact of these savings and what it will have on the company's bottom line. So I've come up with 4 best practices so you can start the conversation with your suppliers. First, at your request, I'd open up the contract negotiations. Given today's situation, a good place to start would be with some of the legal terms within the contract, such as force majeure. Have them add the words epidemic or pandemic. You've probably heard on the news where insurance companies are not paying clients for business interruption claims because the contract did not specifically state the word pandemic. This also presents a good time to review your T's and C's. In fact, when was the last time you did that? I also want to state too, since I'm not an attorney, of course, you want to discuss any potential contractual changes with your legal team. While you have the supplier on the phone, renegotiate your support costs. Again, I've heard savings between 5 and 15%. This other potential savings may not apply to you, but you can always ask for a deferral of payment, say 90 to 120 days. And heck, while you're at it, ask for a reduction in that payment, say 20%. What do you have to lose? Anything? It seems, though, most of the effort around cutting costs are with the business-critical suppliers, the ones with the multi-million-dollar contracts. But what about something I call long-tail spend? Long-tail spend includes the directing of dollars for very similar technology to many different IT suppliers. This spend is typically not contracted, not well managed, and as such is not well defined, not categorized correctly, or even identified. For example, you may find that various departments or business units in your company are buying very similar cloud platforms from different suppliers. Wouldn't it make sense to consolidate those under 1 or 2 contracts and negotiate more aggressively for discounts for those technologies? By doing such, I've seen clients save upwards of 10 to 20% of their long tail spend. One company that I've worked with recently had a long tail spend of IT services of over $11.5 million. We were able to save them $3 million per year by consolidating and managing that spend. Another area where we have been successful saving companies money is in P card purchases. If you're not looking at that now, you may be surprised what your employees may be buying. This is definitely an area of additional savings. There are many IT technologies that are purchased on P cards, such as office supplies and cloud services. An added benefit in doing such, when you're going through that process, you may even uncover some shadow IT stuff that may be going on in your organization. These are just a few things I thought of over the last few days. Of course, if you're looking for additional ideas or possibly need assistance, please reach out to PAAS Advisors. At this point in time, I'm going to open this up to questions. 2 of my colleagues are standing by, Eric Cunningham, Managing Partner, and Dave Krieger, Chief Analytics Officer, who will assist in answering any questions. And thank you. Any questions?
First question we had today asks, can we focus on one vendor specifically, for example, Microsoft?
Eric, you want to hit that one?
Can you repeat the question, Eric?
Yeah. Can we focus on one vendor, for example, Microsoft?
Absolutely. We have a deal desk program that it's a no contract program that we can focus specifically on one supplier. Microsoft is end of the year is coming up, I believe, in 2 months, and we're pretty busy with them right now. So yes, happy to take it offline if you want to learn more.
Great, great. Next one we had asks, one of your savings areas was to consolidate the long tail spend. What is long tail and how do you specifically identify it?
Hey, that sounds perfect for you. Can you take that one?
Sure. Long tail spend, I identify through a process called category planning. And category planning is where I take a historical look at the spend in the organization and add categories to it if they're not already there. So your procurement people, when they do a PO, they'll add a category to it sometimes. Best practices is to add a category, but if not, I go and categorize the data. And then once you have it categorized, let's say into either hardware or IT services, you start to see this long tail of a ton of different vendors that you may not know that are there. For instance, in IT services, I had a client that had about 98 IT services suppliers. The top 20% of the spend was in the top 4 or 5 suppliers. So we were able to identify about $11 million of long tail spend, and we were able to save about $3 million in that. And it's just, you have to look at it in more detail to be able to identify that spend. So long tail is too many suppliers in one specific category. I hope that answered the question.
Great, thanks, Dave. Next question we just got in asks, what is your engagement model?
I think that's a good question for Eric. Can you handle that?
Yeah, so hopefully I understand it correctly. It's a partnership model where we partner with our clients, and we're a big data company, so we do a lot of data gathering. We format the data into category plans, and at that point we present that data back to our clients, and the platform itself provides us savings indicators. So we prioritize what particular supplier we're going to have a conversation with. So the data is great, but the data doesn't talk to the suppliers, and the data tells us a story. So I think Jim mentioned we have relationships with the suppliers at an executive level, and PAAS Advisors calls them. They know that we understand what great deals look like because we negotiate great deals for companies across the globe. So our engagement model is we work on behalf of the CIO, CFO, and we do not take any of the data to the suppliers until we're on the same page, and we take orders from the clients. So hopefully I answered that correctly. If not, feel free to reach out to me offline.
Great, thanks, Eric. Next question we received is, how can you guarantee a 3-point times ROI in savings?
Eric, again, I think that's a perfect one for you also.
Yeah, so honestly, we normally do a lot more than 3.5. It depends on the amount of data, the contracts that you have, but that was a lot of that 3.5 marketing was prior to what we're going through in the world we live in today. Jim showed some stats on there, 5 to 15%. We've done up to 30% reduction. Keep in mind your suppliers, they're only successful if you're successful. And there's this world of the battle of cloud market share that they're most interested in. And that's kind of what they're going through their minds. I got 25 years. I worked at Microsoft, Oracle, Salesforce. Still good friends with a lot of those folks. I understand what's going through their mind. So the flexibility for you, customers and clients today that procure and consume technology, your window of opportunity is now, because they're looking at this as a long-term relationship, and quite candidly, so are you, right? You understand what technologies are going to drive your business and drive value, and on what your business requirements are. So hopefully that gives you an answer. 3.5 is our minimum guarantee, and we can guarantee that based on the data that we have. Again, we feel like we can renegotiate contracts right now. We can renegotiate support fees as well as newer contracts. So we haven't not met the 3.5 return on investment requirement. In many of our cases, I think our aggregate number is 7.8% return on investment.
Okay.
Awesome. Another one we received is we are a smaller firm, so how can we get better discounts on our telecommunications spend?
Hey, Dave, can you take that one?
Yeah, sure. There is a ton of opportunity in telecommunications. We do a lot of analytics. So the data that we can get with your permission, of course, directly from your telecommunications suppliers. And we have a baseline of spend that we compare it to, and we know where the best rates are across the country. So we can match up your technology, whether it's cell phones, whether you have bring your own device, whether you have a corporate provide devices. We use that baseline data and compare it to you, and can then propose certain contract changes within your environment that provide savings. So it's there at every level. And if you're in a smaller firm with a smaller telecom spend, and you haven't looked at your invoices in a very, very detailed analytical way, there's lots of savings hiding there. So I would recommend taking a look at that.
That's a great explanation, Dave. Thanks. Next one we received is what are some good ways to accurately identify our shadow IT environment?
This is Jim. I think I'll at least start with this, and maybe somebody else can jump in. First off, I don't know if everybody understands what shadow IT is. Basically, within your company, you could have other divisions or other business units, and they're out getting cloud or getting, provisioning cloud technology, different things along that line, maybe without even letting IT know they're doing it. So it becomes somewhat of a dangerous practice. And since some of these other groups have no real, let's say, IT background, they're spinning stuff up 24/7. They're overload. They're getting just with too much, or servers, too much power, too much memory, those types of things. But somebody has to pay that bill. So somebody's paying the bill. So if it eventually comes to your attention, I mean, you can actually find different areas where, people are running their own little IT shops, different divisions. And, it would be a company policy. You may want to shut them down or at least have some kind of control on those. Again, I don't know, Dave, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, Jim, thanks. Again, through data analytics and category planning, you can spot a lot of spend anomalies. One of my clients, I did category planning for their software category, and I determined they had 11 different BI platforms out there. Now, if you're a CFO or a CIO and you know that your data is in 11 different silos, that is a big deal. It's not necessarily the savings. I think the total spend was a couple $1 million, but so it would have offered savings, but it's also a risk having your data in 11 different silos. And so, again, the category planning really helps to find different anomalies like that.
Great, thanks, guys. Next one we received asks, when we negotiate savings, it seems to vanish sometimes. So I can't prove to our financial leadership that we actually saved anything. Do you have strategies to track savings?
Again, I think, Dave, that's a good one for you.
Okay. Yeah, I do. I learned this when I was IT category lead at a very large insurance company. They had to track savings. They had to save $15 million one year in their IT spend. And how do you do that? But we built a partnership between either a IT manager or the CIO, me from procurement, and a finance representative. And there had to be a budget line item, let's say for laptops. And at that point, we did a reverse auction for laptops, and we saved about 25% per unit They looked at their future spend for laptops, and they were able to take that amount of money out of that budget line item and move it to a savings line item. Or they could take it and put it to other business value. But you have to have a representative of finance. You have to have IT, procurement, and finance so that you can actually identify that savings and actually move it out of that budget to a savings budget or to other business value. So yeah, you can't just let it go, because then you can't, like you said, you can't prove it. So hope that helps.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Dave. Another one we received in here asks, how can we identify other savings opportunities?
Eric, that one sounds like a good one for you. You've had experience with that.
So I'm going to take a shot at answering it. So how we identify savings opportunities at PAAS Advisors is data. We take your data, your contracts, we put your data into your own partition of our platform, and then we run an algorithm to see what kind of discounts that you've received. Not only the initial discounts, you saw a slide that Jim had on there that had pricing, business terms, and legal terms. We've got over 2,000 of those items that we build out, and then the platform creates savings initiatives. In addition to that, technology changes constantly, so does pricing. Our platform's updating with pricing all the time, whether it's enterprise software pricing, hardware pricing, telco pricing, so we understand what that is, and a lot of it's now usage-based, right, cloud. So we continue to look at the agreements as well too. So a little human-based and a little AI, and then we identify those areas constantly for our clients.
Thanks, Eric. One of the last one, second to last one here. Does it make sense to negotiate longer term contracts for better discounts?
Yeah, I think, Eric, there's another one you're very familiar with.
Yeah, there's some risk of doing long-term contracts, and there's some rewards. So if your business is bought into a financially stable organization as a big enterprise company, not to mention them, you can figure that out. There's also a lot of risk, with a private equity-backed company that maybe is a niche type technology. We wrote an article and recently about the number of acquisitions to expect as we come out of this situation that we're in. So there's some uncertainty there, and then some of those companies won't be around. So we, PAAS Advisors, we're private equity backed, we're financially stable, but we offer a month-to-month contract. If the value isn't there, then obviously you don't want to continue with that relationship. Those are the conversations you should be having with your technology providers, whereas maybe the larger companies, of course, it might make sense to do a longer term contract, but you always have the ability to have buffers and out clauses, et cetera, within those agreements.
Okay. Any additional questions?
What are some of the most important terms and conditions that we should be paying attention to?
Sorry, Eric, I think it's another one you've been working on recently.
Right. So think about cloud-based technology, usage, users. You get true ups, so buffers. If you're a merger and acquisition company where you grow your business with M&A, you want to certainly have that in there. Assignment, divestiture, what percent you can assign, what you can divest. Jim mentioned force majeure earlier. We build templates. We have templates, best practices templates that we share with our customers, so they make sure that it protects their business across the board. And there's a lot of business terms like price holds, out clauses. We can go on and on. There's many different terms and conditions, but I think Jim hit a big one, force majeure, as well as buffer clauses. So you don't have to go and have a conversation at the CFO office saying, "Oh, I ran over my budget because we had some, some shadow IT going on or rogue spending. So it gives you that ability to identify it and then make sure that you mitigate that by talking to those individuals or group that's doing that.
Well, great, thanks, Eric, for the explanation. Last question here, as we're kind of approaching the top of the hour and we want to be respectful of everybody's time. Would you recommend keeping telecom contracts short due to the price drops and bandwidth availability?
Yeah,
That's Eric again.
Is there? Yeah, absolutely. We do not do long-term telco contracts or mobility contracts. We have many use cases that and stories that and data that can show you why not to do that. So no, we do a lot with school districts. They sign up for 3 to 4 years, and at the end of those 3 to 4 years, if they wouldn't have had that contract for that long, they would have saved millions of dollars. So yeah, I would. Those are categories where you want to do the shortest term that you can, because you can always renegotiate that.
Awesome, great. Well, that looks like that's all the questions we had today. Again, we want to be respectful of your time, and we thank everybody for joining us today, our CIO Huddle. If you have further questions or would like any additional information, please feel free to reach out to me, eric.harper@paasadvisors.com. Thanks again, and stay safe, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you, guys.
Thank you.